So the story I'm about to tell is why I will never touch a Ouija board. When I was in elementary school, I went to a friend's sleepover party for her birthday. It was me, her, a few of our mutual friends, and a few of her friends who I didn't know personally. The house that my friend lived in was kind of old, dark, a little bit far out from the city, but not completely isolated, but still kind of creepy. So this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So while we're having this sleepover, we're playing all of those games that we used to play back then. So we played Light as a Feather, we played Bloody Mary, and we just sat around telling ghost stories in the dark. All of that was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary happened while we were doing that. So after we get done with those games, I hear one of her friends talking to some of the other girls, and she's asking them like, oh, should I do it? Do you want to see it? Should we try it? And it turns out that she brought a Ouija board, and she was trying to see if anybody else wanted to try it out with her. So for context, while I was growing up, had some paranormal experiences, or at the very least experiences that I can't explain. And so for me, I prefer to just stay away from anything like that. I didn't like to engage. So the fact that all of my friends were trying to, mess around with a Ouija board was making me really uncomfortable. So they placed the Ouija board on the floor, and then everyone who was going to play sat down in a circle around the Ouija board. Everyone participated except for myself and one other girl. So since I wasn't participating, I sat down on an armchair that was right in front of where they were sitting on the floor. And then the other girl, who was also not participating, she sat on an armchair off to my left. And her armchair had its back to my friend's sliding glass door that led out to her deck. All of the lights were off in the room that we were playing in. Pretty much all the lights, in that entire floor were off. The only thing that was on was the TV, and the TV was on just in the background on mute, and everything else again was just pitch black dark. So the girls who were playing start asking it questions, like silly stuff, like, oh, who am I gonna marry? Am I gonna be rich? Stuff like that. So everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden, one of the girls slams her hand down on the board and says in this kind of, strange voice. It was still her voice, but the tone was a little off. She slams her hand down and she says, you guys are doing it wrong. You're supposed to say hello first. Don't be rude. And so everyone looks at her like, wow, what a weirdo. But they went ahead and listened to her anyway. So they started over, they said hello, and then they started asking new questions. At this point, they're asking these questions. The planchette is moving. They start arguing over who's actually moving it and, whatever. While this is happening, all of a sudden, the hairs on my arms and the back of my neck start pricking. And I look up at where the TV is. Next to the TV, off to the right, was a hallway. The hallway was dark because, again, all the lights are off. The hallway is dark, but the entrance to the hallway is right next to the TV. And so what I see there is a silhouette, a pitch black, dark silhouette of what appears to be a person. And I was so freaked out, but I couldn't look away. I was staring at it, and I thought maybe that's just her dad. And so I'm looking for any sign that this figure that I'm looking at is her dad. But the problem is that her dad had kind of long, scraggly hair that was like, it would show off over here. So he also had a fairly thick beard. So if that was her dad, I still would have been able to see from the shadow silhouette his hair and his beard. This figure had nothing. It was an outline and nothing else. I also couldn't feel, I don't know if any of you have experienced this. If you have, please let me know, because this is the strangest thing I've ever seen. I didn't get that feeling of recognition that you get when you're looking at another human. Even if you don't know the person, you at least intuitively know that you're looking at a human being. I did not get that from this figure that I was looking at. So while I'm staring at this thing, and I don't even know how long I was staring at it, the same girl who slammed her hand down, all of a sudden, projectile vomits all over the board. And obviously obviously, as soon as she does it, everyone who is sitting around the board screams and scatters away from the board. Everyone's staring at her, including me. That broke my concentration. So I'm staring at her, and she kept her head down, looking at the board after she vomited. And she says in this, like, almost whisper tone, oh, it freaks me out. I said, "Don't be rude." So at that point, I hear the bedroom door to where my friend's dad was sleeping open. I hear him walking down the hall, and I see him coming from where the figure was standing. And when I watched him do that, I knew for a fact that was not her dad that I saw standing there. And I know that because, again, like I said earlier, you would be able to see his hair, you'd be able to see his beard as part of his shadow. So needless to say, I did not sleep a wink that night. I don't think anyone else did either. I never went back to her house, and I 100% will never touch a Ouija board.
So before I tell the story, just know I was young. I was young and I was dumb, and I also was trying to fit in, okay? So, freshman year of college, just moved, first like 2 weeks in the dorm, just moved in. I met this guy I really liked, and he had already had like a really large group of friends at the college. So one night he texts me, he's like, "Hey, me and a bunch of like people, we're gonna go hang out and, you know, smoke and drink and stuff. Do you want to come?" And you know, I really liked him, so I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, of course I'm gonna come." So we roll out. It's like 3 or 4 cars. There's like 12 of us. We're rolling in deep, right? And I'm like, "Okay, where are we going?" He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take you to this spot. You know, we've been coming here the last couple of days and everything. It's a really cool spot to hang out because, of course, you can't do that stuff in the dorm room." So me, I'm just like happy to ride. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I've made friends already. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy." And context, it's like 11 o'clock at night. It's super, super dark and it's cloudy. So we're riding out. We leave the college, we're riding out for a while, like we're going way out there, and I'm like, "Where are we going?" So finally we come to like this really long road, and there's nothing but like woods surrounding us. It's just one singular road in woods. It's like pitch black. We're riding down this road, and we come to this like clearing, and there's one street light. And I'm like, "Where are we?" And so I'm like pulling into the spot following other cars, and as our headlight like shines on this clearing, I see that it's a graveyard. And I'm trying to be cool about it. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm being too superstitious. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, seem stuck up to these new friends I'm trying to make, you know, first year college, trying to like get in where I fit in. So by the time we get there, there's already a couple of cars there. There's already people hanging out. And the people who rode with us, like in the back seat, they get out. And then the guy that I liked, he's riding up front with me. He gets out. And then I open my door. The moment I open my door, there is this huge gust of cold wind. Mind you, it's August in South Alabama. It's hot. There's this huge gust of cold wind. And then the whole forest surrounding us, the woods, gets completely silent. We're in the South, okay? There are so many bugs and animals and critters that like are chittering and making noises at night. They just stop. It gets like eerily quiet, and the people who are already there, they like stop for a second and they're just like looking around. Everyone like just like pauses, because when you're used to hearing like all that ambient noise and then it just completely goes away, it's startling. So I got the door open. I got one foot in the car still, one foot out of the car, and the guy like is like, come on, let's go. I'm just like, okay. So I get out of the car and I'm out there for like 5 minutes, and I'm feeling uneasy, but I'm trying to like push it down. But because I'm feeling uneasy, I'm not participating in like the drinking and smoking. So everything's good. Everyone's like laughing and dancing, and they're playing like music from a speaker, and they're all drinking and smoking and stuff, and I'm getting to know like new people. So the speaker that they're playing music on, it just dies. And then we hear like a really weird, like loud noise coming from the woods. We hear a really weird noise. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but right after that noise, we hear what sounds like chains. It sounds like someone's like jangling chains, and it's echoing through the whole woods. We're surrounded by the woods. Like there's woods all around us, and then there's just the street that we came on. So you can hear it echoing around us, like the chains are like surrounding us. I'm like, nope. I get in my car and I sit in my car. I stay in my car while they're out there doing stuff. They stay out there for like an hour. I'm in my car strolling on my phone. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Snapchat, and suddenly I just hear screaming, and everybody runs to their cars. Everybody runs to their car. They get in my car, like, go, go, go. I'm like trying to get my keys. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? They're like, just drive. So we're driving, and as we're driving, I'm like, what's going on? What happened? And they were like, we heard people. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yes, we heard people. And then it sounded like people just running towards us, like just people running to us. We could hear them. So that happens, right? A couple weeks pass. Everything's fine. And then things weren't fine. Things started going like weird in my dorm room. And at the time, I didn't know this, but weird stuff wasn't just happening to me, it was happening to all my roommates. So in my dorm room, it was 4 of us. Okay, me and my best friend, we shared a dorm room, and then there were 2 other girls. One girl, it was a black girl, she was super spiritual, and the other girl, she was white, and she was like very hardcore Christian. So weird stuff was happening to all of us, but we weren't communicating it with each other. One of the weird things that happened to me and my boyfriend, we were sleeping in the living room because whenever he was my boyfriend at this time now. So we're in the living room sleeping, and I have a really bad dream. I like sit up because I'm about to get a sip of water, and I look over to the corner, and I see like this shadow, like this dark shadow just like glooming towards us. Like, I don't know how to describe where a head would be. It was like turned like that to us, and we're sleeping like on the floor on like sleeping bags. So I scream, and my boyfriend wakes up, and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, I saw something. And he looks at me, and he was just like, what did you see? And I tell him. And so we stay up, and we like watch like funny movies to try to lift the mood. And then, you know, the next day he tells me, I didn't want to freak you out even more, but like I had a nightmare. Like right when you screamed, I was having like a terrible nightmare. And he was like, I actually been having like nightmares every night I stay in your dorm room. And then he was like, I think I'm gonna sleep in my own dorm room for a while. So like he didn't sleep in my dorm room for like a couple of weeks after that happened. So things were happening. My best friend, she would be in the dorm room when I went to class, and she'd be the only one in there because she had a different schedule than the rest of us. And she said that the door, and our doors were heavy, these are really heavy doors. She said she would have the door closed, and it would just swing open and then close again, swing open, close again randomly. She got so scared that she ended up going to like she would go to the cafe when no one else was in the dorm room because she was so scared to be by herself in the dorm room. We had stuff on our walls. It wouldn't fall. It would be like thrown across the room. How does something hanging up on a wall, like our lights, like our little Christmas lights, it wouldn't just fall, thrown across the room? Lights would flicker, cabinets would open. And one day, me and my best friend, we were like sitting there eating, and we were talking about it, and the spiritual girl and her boyfriend, they walk in, they hear us talking about it, and they're like, you guys weird stuff has been happening to you guys too? We're like, yeah. And they tell us the stuff that's been happening. And then her boyfriend was like, yeah, one night we were out in the living room, and she was asleep, and I look over and I see like this dark shadow, and I'm just like, I saw the exact same thing. So he gets oil, he starts anointing and praying over it. He's like, yeah, we got to get whatever's in here out of here. So he's praying, he's pulling out the works, okay? He's blessing every room, he's putting crosses over every door. And while he's doing this, our other roommate walks in, and she freaks out. She completely freaks out. She packs up all her stuff. I don't know why. I still don't know why to this day she went crazy. She packs up her stuff, she leaves, she never comes back. So it was good for a while. But then the spiritual girl, like her boyfriend, stopped coming to the dorm room because he got a job. So he wasn't sleeping there. When he stopped coming, things started getting bad again. So fast forward, things are getting weird again. Stuff is starting to happen. Me and my friend, we put a Bible on the desk and we leave it open because we're like, that's how scared we are. We're sleeping and we just hear the Bible, boom, close. And we're like, oh, hell no. No. So we're in theater class and we're talking about this, and this girl hears us. She hears us from across the room. She walks over to us and she says, I did not want to scare you guys, but for the last like month and a half, I have felt like this dark presence around you guys. And she was like, I can feel like this dark presence like around y'all. And we were like, what? And she was like, I don't want to freak you guys out, but like I'm really like spiritually tapped in. And she was like, can I come to your dorm room and see what's going on? And we're like, sure. So we tell our friends what's going on. So our friends that were at the graveyard, they come too because they want to see what's going on, because when they would come over and we would have like game nights and stuff, weird stuff would happen as well. So So we walk into the dorm room. She comes in last. As soon as she comes in the room, like she steps over the threshold into the room, the lights flicker. Like, and I'm not talking about like, doo-doo. No, I'm like the lights are flickering, going crazy. And she's a white girl. She has really like dark red hair. We can see the hair on her arms just like stand up. Like we could see it. We could see the hair on the backs of her neck. She just got like chills all over her entire body. And she was like, there's a spirit here. And she was like, this spirit is not happy that I'm in this room. So she's like going through the entire dorm room, right? And she gets to my bed, my side of the dorm room, and the doors, both doors, our room door and our other roommate's room doors, open and close, open and close, open and close. At this point, everyone's like screaming, freaking out. And she starts talking to the spirit, and she's like, I know you're scared, but you need to calm down. Like, you're okay, calm down. And then everything just stops, and it just feels so calm. And she's like talking to the spirit, and we're just like looking. She's like, okay, we need to get her back. And we're like, what? Get who back? And she was like, you need to take her back to her gravesite. And we were like, what? So we all get in the car, we take it back to the gravesite, and she finds this unmarked grave, and she puts her spirit. So there was no way the girl from theater class would have known about the graveyard situation, because we didn't talk at all in class. That was the first time we had ever interacted with her, was when she said she felt bad energy around us. And so when she was like, we need to take her back to the gravesite, me and my boyfriend and our two friends that were there that was with us that night when we were at the graveyard, we all stopped and we looked at each other. My best friend, she didn't know about it. I didn't tell her about it because I knew she would be like, you're dumb for going to like a graveyard. Like, what? So she didn't know about it. And so she was like, what gravesite? What are you talking about? So we tell them everything that happened that night at the graveyard, and we get in the car, and she's like, yeah, we need to go put her to rest. So we get in the car, and while we're on our way to the gravesite, she's talking to the spirit in the car. We get to the gravesite, and we're like, okay, what's the girl's name so we can find her headstone and put her to rest and be done with this? And the girl from theater is like, just follow me. So she starts walking through the graveyard, and she walks past all the headstones. And she starts walking into the woods, and we follow her. We just follow her. What else are we gonna do? She goes deep into the woods. I would say we were walking for like 10 minutes. So it was pretty far back. When we get there, we get to an unmarked grave. She kneels down, and she's talking to the spirit. And she's like, guys, give me some space. And then as she's talking to the spirit, she just starts like crying uncontrollably. Like she's sobbing. And she's like holding her hand over her mouth. She's like, she's getting really stressed out. And so I guess she put the spirit to rest or whatever, and she turns back and she comes to us, and she's like, guys, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. And she was like, we were like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean you made a mistake? And she was like, I thought there was just one spirit in that dorm room, but there was two. At this point, my boyfriend and like all of our friends, they're all like, this is starting to get this is going above our head a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we need to get some help. So we get in the car, and we head back to the dorm room. So as we're in the car, she tells us that the spirit of the little girl was telling her about her life, and she was like, there was a man who tormented her whole life, and he unalived her. And the little girl was like, even now he's been tormenting me. And she was like, what I think happened is that night when you guys were at the graveyard, her spirit tried to get away from him by attaching onto you. And she points to me. And she was like, when she attached to you, she thinks that his spirit, his dark evil spirit, followed us into the car, followed us back to our dorm room. And so she's like, we need to get him out of your dorm room. So we stop by her room, and she gets like all the supplies. She's getting salt, she has like sage, she has like holy water, and she's like, we need to get him out. So we go back to our dorm room. At this point, it's getting dark. My friend, we pull up to the room, my friend opens the door. When we open the door, there's like stuff everywhere. Like, it looked like someone was just throwing stuff against the wall. And we noticed that all the stuff that was being thrown was in that same corner that me and the spiritual girl's boyfriend saw like this dark figure. So we walk into the room, and as soon as we walk into the room, the girl from theater screams and she falls backwards. And we all whip our heads around, and you can see it. Like, I would not believe it if I weren't there. I would not believe it. We turn, and like at just a millisecond, you can see it look like, you can see her hair, like someone grabbed her hair and pulled her backwards. And we're like, oh my God, no, we're done. Come on, it's Friday. We can just go somewhere else. We're not going to sleep here this weekend. And she's like, no, I'm fine. She gets up. She gets the salt. She gives me the salt, me and my boyfriend, everyone who is in the room that was at the graveyard. She gives some salt and she tells us to go and throw it around the room, throw it around my bed, throw it into the corner especially. So we're doing it, we're throwing it. And as we are like going around the room, when we get to that corner where we keep seeing that dark figure, the lights start flickering. Then she's like, she gets the sage, she starts saging. And we're scared because the more that she saged, the more intense the lights start flickering. Because the more that she sages, the more like the atmosphere in the room just felt so heavy. Like you could feel the pressure in the room. Like it was just, the energy was so thick, you could cut it with like a knife. And so after she's saging, and during all this, the lights are still flickering. And then finally she gets the holy water and she gives it to me. And during this time period, I didn't know. I was barely 18. I didn't know anything about any of this kind of stuff. So I'm looking at her like, why are you giving this to me? And she's like, it has to be you. And I'm scared. Like my hands are literally shaking. At this point, everyone is really scared. Everyone's scared. My boyfriend's scared. No one wants to be there. The vibes are not good. And so she's telling me to like use the holy water and to tell him to get out. And so I get it and I do like a little get out. And she's like, no, you need to like command him. Like you need to tell him to get out and leave, that we do not want you here. So I'm getting a little braver. I get the water and I throw it and I say, get out. You are not welcome here. And when I say that, we have like a mirror in our common area. It's like a medicine cabinet where we keep like all of our toothbrushes and stuff because there's a sink there. When I say that, the medicine cabinet door swings open so hard that it breaks the glass. And at this point, I'm like, I want to go. And the girl from theater class is like literally holding me, telling me, no, you have to tell him to leave. You cannot leave or he will stay. And so I'm throwing it. I'm saying like, leave, get out of here. My friend, she's freaked out. She's completely freaked out. She starts crying, and my boyfriend starts like freaking out. He's like, nah, we need to get out of here. And then as I'm like throwing the holy water, the girl starts like praying really hard, and then all the power in the entire dorm building goes off. The lights are out. There's no power in the building. And then I wouldn't believe it if I was not there. As soon as she finishes the prayer, the lights come back on. And you could feel the shift in the atmosphere instantly. And then she just calmly, she goes to the door, she opens the door to our room, and she says, leave. And I'm assuming it left, because after that, we never had a single problem. But we literally never talked about that again. We never talked about that again, because it started out so like, you know, when these things happen and you're like, oh my God, like you kind of it's like a joke, it's like a game. But it just got serious so fast that we just didn't talk about it. We never talked about it again. Never. Me and my best friend, we don't even talk about it anymore. Moral of the story, don't learn from my mistakes. Don't go party in a graveyard. Don't do that. Don't do that.